So my question to you as we jump into this is what actually brings the value to a woman? Like, do hoes hold any value?
Unfortunately, yes, they actually do. Not to men who are forward projecting thinkers, but the reality is that there are so many sexless men out there that these women get wifed up all the time. But it's about the kind of man that will wife them up, and that's a different question because a lot of women have this assumption that there's always going to be some guy around the corner, and I don't dispute that. But is he going to be a masculine man who is capable of being a leader of your household that you're attracted to? And I would argue that the majority of married women, for the few that even get married, I would argue that the majority of married women are married to men that they're not attracted to and they don't look up to.
Why do you say that they don't look up to or they're not attracted to them?
I just get too many DMs. I get a lot of DMs from men. I get a lot of DMs from women. I get DMs from religious folks. I get DMs from Christian conservatives. I also am familiar with Christian conservatives in real life. I live in the Midwest. Infidelity is common in a lot of marriages, but I find that the wives that are the best behaved with the best demeanor, they tend to be attracted to their husbands because I also interview wives on my YouTube channel that have been married much longer than myself. I don't have all the answers. I've only been married a year, so technically I'm still a newlywed. But I realized when I would ask the women on my podcast, I have a criteria for the women that I interview. They have to light up when I ask them about their husband. If they don't light up, if they don't smile, then I don't trust their opinion. So I asked them about dead bedroom questions, and a lot of them were confused. They didn't understand because they'll have a baby, but they'll go and they'll chase their husband immediately after. They can't wait to have sex with their husband again. So I came to the conclusion that the majority of women are simply married to men that they're not attracted to. That's where I'm at.
But do they have to be attracted to them? Because this is kind of an interesting position, and we're going to jump down into a long line of questioning to try to understand what makes a woman valuable, what makes a marriage successful, and of course, on the flip side, what makes a man valuable and a man successful in his marriage. But first, I'm just going to add one here to the editors, and then I'm just going to jump back in here. Um, so So Allie, so women are out of control, obviously. I mean, at this point, I don't even know if women know that they need men. I don't even know if they want men, right? We see tweets like this every day from someone named Kayla Johnson, ATL, says, for Women's History Month, I'm so grateful to be reminded that we don't need men anymore to survive. And nothing says you're confident in your understanding and opinion about men by needing to voice it and repeat it and put it online, right? We don't need them to vote. We don't need them to own property, to make money, to work, to have a family. We get to wait until we find someone we adore who is worthy of us choosing to share our lives with. I just want to say this. When did women become so damn cocky? And is there any hope that we can possibly humble them back into realizing that they're out of their fucking minds?
I think so. I think that we just have to wait for the wave of single and childless women that's going to hit the nursing homes that are not going to have men or children advocating for them or their safety. But it's going to take probably 50 years for us to see something like that. But I think it's going to be an unprecedented time that we've never seen this amount of women who are single and childless. We're going to have to fund them. Taxpayers are going to have to fund them. And I'm not sure that our society is built for that.
Yeah. No, I don't understand this cockiness though, because it really confuses me why we've ended up in a competitive society to where the conclusion that men and women have, as you see constantly on TikTok, etc., is that we don't really need each other. When the entire foundation of society, the entire future of our species depends on procreation. And that's the most fundamental understanding. We need each other to exist. Our future existence relies on our dependency, and not just to have sex and to create life, but to take care of life, to raise life. As we're seeing, the fundamental problem in Western society is that we are not taking care of our young. We are not raising them correctly. We are not bringing them up. And so let's just start with the basic fundamental of virginity, okay? Before we even look at stats, do you think that in order to have a successful marriage, that virginity is the most important factor towards a successful marriage? And if yes, or if not, how important is it?
Mhm. I wouldn't say that it's the most important, but it would be the biggest thing that I would recommend for both men and women, although men get looked at a little bit differently. But if we're taking the Christian conservative route, those folks typically get married between the ages of 18 and 24, and they get married to each other within their age group fairly quickly. But when you look at marital satisfaction reports, this is how you can tell women are always a little bit more miserable than men. The virgin husbands will rate a higher marital satisfaction than the women. However, the women who did save themselves for marriage rate marital satisfaction highest out of multiple demographics. So I think it is a very important factor. It's obviously something that I would promote to my own daughter just because it's less baggage to walk into a marriage with to begin with. But aside from that, I also think that it's a bad heuristic. Like I said, I get DMs and there are men who married who they thought was the perfect virgin waifu, and she turns out to be secretly evil behind the scenes because there isn't that much of a difference, in my opinion, between conservative women and liberal women if you look at how they behave sometimes. Because there's plenty of conservative women that I think they're using that as a mating strategy so that they can get security from men, whereas they know they wouldn't be able to get possibly that same amount of security from a liberal man. So I think that we're all just kind of strategic in how we're trying to mate these days, and we'll do anything to get it. There's lots of women that reach that epiphany phase and they'll pivot very quickly into the long prairie dresses and the long hair, and finally they find the Lord, which is their prerogative. I'm not going to complain about somebody finding Jesus. That's awesome and amazing. But it is a little bit suspicious when it seems to happen within a very specific age range. And these women could be settling down younger. So I just don't find that there's a secret code to women. I think women are just women.
Okay, well, to kind of disagree, I do agree on the first part that a lot of women tend to find God at 29 to 31 years old, and they tend to be in this position where they want to become spiritually virgins again. And I fully support Christianity, and I love the fact that it is attractive to the sinner, right? I like the fact that the kingdom of God wasn't meant to be given to the high, the lofty, the noble, the rich. It's to those who feel broken, who need God, and those who want him. But it can also be used as an excuse, to fair enough, of like, okay, I'll just be a hoe till I'm 29, and then when I need to be cleansed by God, I can be renewed. And before we even jump into to the next part of this, I want to read some stats here, because from what I've seen, and maybe you've seen differently, it looks like only 5% of women who get married are virgins upon married, sometimes as low as 3%, depending on if you take out disabled people, and you take out, even when you take out people who are first generation immigrants, because a lot of times they have a different culture, different religion. And so there's actually a whole different standard, especially Islamic immigrants. But what I've looked here is that virginity is the greatest factor that actually decides not if a woman's satisfied in her marriage, but a proclivity towards not getting divorced, which I think is much different to wager divorce versus satisfaction. But I've seen that it's, according to the CDC, 75% of girls are still virgins by the 10th grade. So by 15 years old, 1 in 4 American girls have already had sexual intercourse and or have been penetrated either illegally or legally. By the end of 12th grade, they said only 40% of girls are virgins. And by the end of the year 24, which is at the end of either their bachelor's or their grad school, which is becoming the standard, only 12.3% of women are virgins. So virginity, while being one of the key factors, appears to be one of the most rare factors in women. And maybe, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we minimize it, because it's almost like a non-grado factor. It's like there's so few women that are actually virgins. It's not really something to consider for most people, considering the fact that by the time a woman is going to get married in our culture, 24 to 29 years old, she only has a 12% chance. And actually, I take that back. I think 31 is the average age of marriage now, or 30 or something like that. So there's like a 7% chance or 6% chance she's a virgin. My point is, should we even be worried about this anymore? Is this alarming to you that women are no longer virgins when they're getting married? And is this a huge contributing reason why marriages aren't working out?
This is why I said I think that a lot of women marry men that they're not attracted to, because I think Honestly, it comes down to you might have already had the best sex of your life, but you couldn't get him to commit to you. And if you have that point of reference, that's going to leak into your marriage, and you're going to know that he didn't make you feel that same way through the years. So I do think that it's a very important factor to save yourself for marriage, but I wouldn't say that it's the only heuristic to go by, because I get a lot of men who come in my comment section, they come in my chats, and they're always looking for the virgin bride. Where these are men that I perceive to be perpetually online. But if you're looking for a virgin bride, they are in church, which means you need to get off your butt and you need to go to church to go and meet them, and you have to be within their age group, because I find a lot of the times that this is mostly a cope. Now, I wouldn't minimize it. It's very important to save yourself for marriage. However, we are past the hormonal birth control that's been out since the 1950s, and we're also past the industrial revolution. So women are the freest they've ever been, but I'm already seeing basically what I perceive to be and what I predict to be fifth wave feminism that's going to come out against promiscuity and the pill and surrogacy, all while still being pro-choice, which riddle me that. How is that going to be effective? But I think that we're going to start seeing more and more of these feminists come out and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't be on birth control. And I don't recommend for women to be on birth control either, just because it's not healthy for you. So those are my thoughts on saving yourself for marriage. I do think that it's important. I just don't think it's the only metric to go by, because there's a lot of dudes that have been married 20, 30 years and are miserable. They married a virgin bride, and they're in a sexless marriage and they're unhappy. So marriage is much more than that. But if you want to put all the cards in your favor as a young woman, yes, you should do that. Mm-hmm.
I got to talk to you about Pixatine, which are nicotine-infused toothpicks. Now, you guys know I love a good smoke every once in a while, but of course, many of you guys might smoke more than just once in a while, or you might have an addiction to a vape or something else. You know, there's restrictions on where you can smoke. You know, it's not great for your health, and maybe you've tried alternatives, but it's really hard to stop doing that. Now, there is an alternative to this that has no restrictions in planes, trains, and automobiles, comes in amazing flavors like winter fresh and cinnamon, as well as tobacco and other amazing flavors. They're small, they're portable, can be used literally basically anywhere, including a plane, train, or automobile. And that is the toothpicks from Pixatine.com/Elijah. Now, when you go to Pixatine.com/Elijah, that's Pixatine.com/ELIJAH, you get 10% off, 20% off, actually, even better, 20% off the entire store. It's even better. I forgot they have such a good deal for you guys. These give you that same nicotine buzz, and if you're 21 or older, you might find this is a better alternative. You don't have the smell, you don't have the smoke, you don't have the restrictions, you get the same buzz. It's a good product, and I know a lot of people have used these instead of doing other activities that could be harmful. I can't say that they can help you quit, but I can tell you I've had friends who have stopped smoking and used these instead. Those are my friends. That's their experience. Maybe you should try that, or you just want to try these as well because you're tired of the restrictions on smoking. Go to Pixatine.com/Elijah, Pixotine.com/ELIJAH. That's Pixatine.com/Elijah for 20% off all of these amazing products. Check it out.